Because when we conduct, we live in three times, right? We are leading the present, we are preparing the future, but sometimes we need to forget or digest what just happened.
Ciao, Jan.
Ciao, Carlo.
It's very nice to sit with you here, like we did so many times in so many
agree.
places in the world. And here we are in Montecatini, and we are working the Festival di Primavera with a lot of young people. And I think it's nice to have a little conversation, and let's see where it brings us. But I wanted to tell you something funny happened to me yesterday during the rehearsal of Teo Teardo, is an artist who made a performance yesterday evening. And I was curious if he ever performed for an audience of teenagers. And I asked him something like, are you familiar with this age? And he answered, yes. I've been 17 too. And I thought it was a nice answer, but I've been also thinking how nice that he was actually looking at these young people, relating to himself at that age. And so when we were coming here to have this conversation, I was thinking that you started in the boys' choir, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. So you were a singer, probably younger than the singers here, yes. And then in this age, and then you started conducting. So I was just thinking, when you work with people of this age, or any age, but this age in particular, do you remember how you were, and is something that you, in a way, is useful for you, or interesting for you to relate of your emotions, your experiences, or now that you are on the other side of the music stand is different?
This is actually a very good question, because I remember that 2 years ago, in the frame of the Europa Canta Junior Festival in Ghent, we were sitting together with a group of conductors, and such a question came to all of us. How is it special to work with the kids, or what are maybe tricks or tips? And honestly, I first was a bit surprised even by this question, and I did not perfectly know an answer. And then I tried to reflect myself. So in this meaning, your question is very good, because I have thought about it. And what is interesting is that when I look back, then I must say that, of course, in this age, I started singing with 11 in this boys' choir, and we had rehearsal every day. So it was quite a tough schedule. You don't think so much what you do. You just do it, and if you enjoy it, there is not a problem. You just love to do it. And why did I enjoy it? Okay, on one hand, of course, because I obviously like music until today. On the other hand, I enjoyed very much to do something together with others, which in this age I think I did not understand. It is something that I understood when I reflected on this. And the third thing maybe is that we had a conductor who was really quite tough, I would say, or even two conductors in this boys' choir. They were really working very hard with us, but I think that we always felt they don't do it for themselves. They do it for the music, and they do it for us. And for me, this is a general key to work with people, no matter which age they are. I think people recognize quite fast if you conduct because of the music, or if you conduct because of yourself. And so I think that everyone feels this, and as I saw some of these choirs last year, not in my atelier, but in other ateliers, and some faces looked familiar, and also this evening in the choir-to-choir concert, I saw them in their own groups, and you see that it's maybe a very different way of working than what we do in the atelier, and of course it is a totally different repertoire than what we do. But I think that young people have a feeling for good music. And it can be pop, it can be jazz, it can be funk, it can be a renaissance, whatever. If it is good music, they will like it. And so this is always, of course, a challenge and always something we never know what will happen. But as I have this experience from myself and reflected 10 years later, I would say that this is what I try to keep. So show them that I am interested in them, I am interested in the music. And then usually it goes together well. But I saw you with your own choirs, and basically you work also with a lot of young people, and I would say that for you it's the same, no?
Yeah, I would say that it's the same, but I need some time to remember how it is to be on the other side, and I think that that's really important, because sometimes when you have the many responsibilities of leading a group or make good schedule, all these things, then you become a bit efficient sometimes. That's my experience. And efficiency can make you feel that you have a lot of power and capacities, and you have everything under control. And when you work with people, to have everything under control, I don't know if it's always the best situation. When I'm relaxed enough not to have everything under control, but to react to what's happening, then I think that something magic happens. And for instance, for me, it's a little bit like when I'm making music and I get still honestly surprised, positively surprised by what's happening. And I have the same feeling as the singers. I mean, this happens really together. Yeah. It's not planned. You can see when a conductor is planning the reactions, but when it's really like that, so, and this means that I have tried to balance a little bit my function of leading a process, keeping the schedule, try to work efficiently, and really enjoy being there and see what happens, and let sometimes the singers lead the process.
Right. Because
they do something that you didn't expect, and it's nice to go outside of the plan if it's a good path. So I think that sometimes I need to think of these things. They are not always so natural. Sometimes it's a bit dangerous also to work too much.
Right.
And
yeah, I think that is maybe exactly what you said now. Maybe this is the key difference between working with maybe a professional choir or a choir of adults, or even when I think of my university choir, because there I would say that I have a kind of plan. Of course, I react to things, but there the movement in the rehearsal is going forward, a bit more strict. And of course, I know this choir, they know how to work with me, and then it's more easy, and the group is maybe a bit smaller, not necessarily, but of course, then you're already used to work together. And I really agree that if we want to put something over them, then it will be very difficult. And I have a nice example from today. So we have a very big rehearsal room, and the sound there is a bit difficult, because even if they just whisper with their neighbor, the sound is filled the whole air. So it is really difficult to work there. And we know in this age you are noisy, and I knew myself from this position. I was one of the worst singers, always talking, and so I have I understand them. So I thought today that we have to make a deal together and say, so then better let's have 2 breaks that are a bit shorter, but you have more time to relax in the break. But on the other hand, we have to agree that then we have 45 or 50 minutes working in silence. And that worked pretty well. So, but I agree that was something that was coming through the exchange or interaction with the group. And yes, we have to react on this. And probably you're right that in these age groups, maybe it is more important to be more flexible or to sense into the group.
Yeah, and does it ever happen to you even in some other fields of life, to be learning, to be a student, to have a teacher or a tutor or a guide in something you don't know so well, or it's something that belongs to your youth when you were studying, and now I wonder if you make any experience like that sometimes, maybe in a sport or in a hobby or anything else.
Well, as we share the wonderful hobby of playing tennis, dear Carlo, I can say that I took some lessons recently, and that was, of course, great again to learn somewhere, and also, of course, to see how you learn. In this case, of course, I knew, okay, my backhand is very bad, so I asked this trainer if we can just train 1 hour backhand, because you are focused on one thing. But then one lesson later, a colleague of me, he joined, and then, of course, we went into interaction, and then this became much more interesting, and also the comments of the trainer then were different. In general, I would say that I am learning constantly, because I learn from my musicians a lot, and I learn from my students a lot, and my way of teaching, or my long period of teaching, was influenced mainly by, okay, my own teacher on the one hand, but also by making experiences with students from totally different levels. And some of them had problems that I never had myself. So then you have to think, okay, how to solve this problem. Maybe you have to change a view. So for me, conducting is just an example, but for me, conducting is always a pulsation movement. But for some students, that didn't help. So for them, maybe it is better to say, okay, don't imagine pulsation, imagine falling down all the time, which in the end is the same movement, but it's just a different point of view on what you have to do. And so I think from this way I learn all the time about everything. I learn cooking. Now I rebuilt something on my house, so I learn how to schedule with craftsmen who are not available anymore, and maybe even do things myself. So I think the moment when we give up learning is a very sad moment, probably.
But so can you say that maybe you have learned to learn better?
Yeah, probably it is like this. Or it happens automatically. We have this many books, of course, in pedagogy, how are the best ways of learning, or what does stay in our mind. And of course we know that if you do something with fun or enjoy it, your mind will keep it much better. And I have an example for this as well. We had a very crazy teacher in academy who was actually not really good teacher, but he made some lectures which were so kind of crazy that still when I meet people from this time, we are quoting these idiotic things he taught to us. So from a didactic point of view, he was an absolute genius. Of course, what he told to us was not really helpful, but it shows so much what stays in our mind. And I think that sometimes it happens to me, or also vice versa, when some students come that I had 10 or 15 years ago, and they say, I have this one thing in mind you told me because you told a story with it, or you had this one quote. So this mental connection, you know, like actually the theme of your wonderful festival here is synesthesia. So the mental representation is an important tool in any kind of music didactic, and not only music didactic. And so maybe this is all the way of learning how to learn, and which makes us better or makes us more interested, and maybe even in the other way. So what do I forget? Because we are daily getting so many information through our phone, through TV, through internet, to whatever. And it's impossible to keep all this, because then your mind will explode if you just can not forget things. So maybe this is also important to learn
to forget.
To forget. Yeah?
That's very interesting.
I mean, did you ever
to
have
select the information in a way?
Yeah, or even performing. I mean, this is. I want to ask you, and I'm sure we agree, because when we conduct, we live in 3 times, right? We are leading the present, we are preparing the future, and sometimes we need to forget or digest what just happened. So probably you have had examples like this as well, yeah?
Yes, I look always forward in the direction of music. Absolutely. But I like very much the idea to learn how to forget. And I like that you talked about tennis, because actually this is a good example for me as well, because I also have lesson tennis, and I think that I'm learning a lot to go through frustration and repeat and don't expect results immediately, but practice. And it tells me, I think, to be a better conductor and a better teacher sometimes, because it reminds me that the process is very personal. And it's interesting because we work with 20, 30, 100 people, and we have 20, 30, 100 different ways of listening to what we say. And I think that the magic thing is that at the end, all these things come together in something that is difficult to explain, and I think is not only pedagogical, because you talked about pedagogy, and I think that, of course, it's very important to know books of pedagogy and try, but I think also that at the end there is some kind of human sensibility in the process, which is very difficult to learn on a book, and there's a kind of connection. And you mentioned synesthesia as a... I choose this theme actually because I realized that it's our job. I mean, it's like we invite people to produce music with their voices. Let's put it like this, no? Okay. And to do that, sometimes we sing so they can imitate, but we often use other ways. So they have to look at us, so we move. We use words which relate with other senses, like light, sound, or colors, etc. And so we try to use all our senses to create an emotion through music, even not to create the sound, but to create something with the sound. So at the end, it's like the synesthesia is a bit our art, or it's connected with artistic languages, and I don't know. That's something also made me curious. We talked about tennis, but we talked about also cooking. We talked about other things, and in the process of making music, in the last years, I'm more and more inspired by things that are coming from outside, not from inside the musical language and the musical world, but I get more inspired sometimes to see an exposition, or to go to the theater to see a dance show, or even, I don't know, in these last months I started getting very interested in trees, plants, and I started reading something, and I feel that I would like to study more and to see how nature is developing and creating something with patterns, with repeating, with variations, and all these things. And in art, it's quite clear that art is imitating nature in a way. But in music, I think that the way, in a way, could be the same thing, no? That we are observing the world and how the world is developing and building, and this has an influence on the way we build our musical world in a way. So I don't know if it happens to you as well, if you use it like to build a program, or even to get inspiration for, I don't know, making the sound of the choir or any other process.
Before I answer this second part, I just remember, because on the way to this interview we were talking about Estonian song celebration and Lithuanian songs that wear this T-shirt. And actually in Lithuania they had this topic about the nature, how it influenced the country, and the songs, of course, because also the country is influencing the songs, and vice versa. The songs are influencing the country. And our dear colleague from Estonia, Raul Talma, told me last year, actually here in this festival, that they start conducting lessons with young children, primary school children, and using words from nature to show them gestures for conducting. And I think this is just such a brilliant idea, I come from a totally academic way of learning this, and then they try to make it natural. And they produce beautiful videos for children where they show different music aspects and how they could be reflected into nature things. So if you drop a stone or if you drop a leaf, and it takes more time to fall down. So talking about gravity in movement, for example, and I think it's fantastic to find this connection in nature and bring it to music. About your first question, I'm a bit split, because on one hand, I try to find, but it depends on the music, of course, that I do, but I try to find truth in the score, which, as I do always also some orchestra music, some big challenge, because this is so many notes and every note is placed perfectly, and to find out why this note is exactly there is a never-ending challenge and story, and I always feel that I don't have enough time to go into it, and if I take more time to go into it, I recognize I need much more time. So the more we know, the less we know. That is, of course, we know about this. So that is the one thing, but on the other hand, I totally agree with you that we need to go out of our own sector, and it can even start in music. I mean, I have never played an instrument that made me able to play chamber music with other people, because my piano playing was not that good, and I did never learn any woodwind or string or brass instrument. So I have friends who know all this chamber music repertoire, and there is so incredibly beautiful music, and I'm so ashamed I don't know it. Or, and actually this is also a shame, but I say it into the camera, that 5 weeks ago it was the first time in my life that I listened to a full Wagner opera in Opera House. I never did that before. And you go out from Tristan and Isolde and you think, my God, what happened just right now to me?
And so, maybe because you said about Wagner, we are talking about a musician who was also a writer and a philosopher. And so actually all these levels are so deep, and they are connected with the music creation, and absolutely. So I think that there are many different ways, and maybe I recognize that since I'm also a composer, and when you do like this, like in this week, the artistic director or something, that you need also an inspiration which put the musical events in a kind of more general conception, which talks about our lives, because at the end, why do we do music?
Right.
I think that everybody has his own answer, but there must be a connection with being humans, being in contact with other humans, and having a language that help us to live our life together, I would say, maybe.
And facing exactly this, I would absolutely agree that at the third step, yes, of course, I try to get out of our total music sector to try to get inspiration somewhere else. I could do this much more, as I do, I always feel, but I try to read about really many very different things, and that is enlightening from time. Of course, I forget a lot, but sometimes you read things where you think, and this is exactly what I wanted to know since many years, or this is so interesting connected to the music I do. So to just broaden the horizon, I don't know who said this, one quite famous musician, I will tell you later, who said, okay, if you educate yourself being a conductor or a musician, you should look for things outside of music, because a musician who only knows about music is not a good musician. And I think
maybe it applies to any profession, any art, any language.
Yes, of course.
And I totally agree. And maybe I would like to go back to what you said about Estonian children, because working with, do you work with children too, or you
Not
start
regularly.
with youth? Because actually what I find very fascinating, I work with children, what I find very fascinating is that they are still so organic with the world, with the sense, with the perception. Last week, in this festival, we have also smaller children.
Yeah.
We talked about synesthesia, also about something that you carry with you as a first tool to know the world. Mm-hmm. So you know the world not rationally and through your senses, and it's all connected. No? And in a way, I think that artists, when you say that artists are a little bit like children, or they keep a little child inside, I think that this could be one way to see that happening, so that you still get surprised, amazed by colors, smell, inputs that reach you sometime in a way that you cannot really describe, it cannot transfer to words and concept, but that influence your way of being and then your way of making music. So for me, conducting children, it is sometimes more fascinating than conducting adults, because first of all, they read me as a whole thing. Yeah. They read who I am, how I move, my mood today, and all these things are so much reflected in the music we do together. When adults, they are more technically interested in what they see. They have already a code to I don't know this word in English, but like we have a special code and you have to find the key. No? They have this more mental way to look at you. And so sometimes when I teach conducting for children, and I said, you need to be a better conductor because you're conducting children. You think that this is easier, but actually this is the most demanding and also exciting world, because they really read you. They really sing as you are, not as you act, as you do, as you learned, but as you are. And so, I don't know, I have the feeling that if you can make music in the way you are as a person, and you can try to put together these two things, then it's not only more honest, but probably is deeper, because you involve everything that is in your life, in your experience, etc., and you try to use music as a channel.
For me, of course, I fully agree. For me, the key word you just said, and it's funny because we were talking before about getting inspiration by reading, and just the night before I flew to Italy, I read it was just the start of a book. I didn't even read more than these first pages. And there it was about this moment of being surprised. And actually this book absolutely mentions what you just said, and takes as example children who are surprised every day, again, by learning something totally new they never saw before. And if you see things again and again, then you stop to be surprised. Well, maybe on one hand it's good, because sometimes we say, oh, I'm not surprised by anything anymore, which gives us some peace in some ways. But in other ways, and especially in artistic ways, I think this moment of being surprised, or being able to be surprised, or even, and this was in this book so interesting, because then they even got further. They said there is also the moment that there are things which are the same, and you are always surprised again by this thing. For example, falling in love, or something. That happened many times, but it's always different. Or even being disappointed of things. So, and also seeing things that even don't surprise you. Also, this is a kind of reflecting of this moment of surpriseness. And maybe that is connected to what we said quite in the beginning, that we need to find a way to stay so open-minded and open-hearted in our work. And I agree that with children probably, or with young people, it might be more impossible. But on the other hand, for the more older people, we need to find more intelligent ways to make them surprised again. So maybe that's another challenge on the other side.
Yes.
And or like we both had this head of creating festivals. I mean, we need to find things that make people feeling sure and happy in the festival, because they find things they know and they find things they feel comfortable. And when they do this, then you can go the step.
It's the right moment to surprise them.
Surprise them. And then even if the surprise may not be what they perfectly like, but they are open enough. If you do a festival with only surprises, they will not understand what you want. So this probably this is very connected from the start of our conversation, right? To have this openness in ourselves, to make ourselves still open to be surprised, but to make other people open as well to feel this surpriseness. And then many things can happen. I agree, because that is also... Maybe I can share a quite personal story that, we are connected through many, many things since many, many years. But I remember that we had a talk in a festival where you said, I have this great choir, but now maybe I think to change something, maybe another job or something. And I said, I can imagine sometimes I also want to do another job. And in the night you performed on this huge stage, and this performance was so fantastic. And I wrote you, you were still on stage, I wrote you a message and I said, how could you even consider stopping this job?
I remember.
And you wrote back, I agree, probably it's not the right time to stop right now. And
I think I was surprised by the performance. Exactly.
Yeah, but it was also, I think it became also because of you. And if we stay open to what is around us and feel moment, feel the choir, feel the stage, and then use our tools, or even be inspired and surprised ourselves, then it's the biggest magic that can happen to any musician, probably.
And maybe when you are ready for changes, you are not sure anymore what you're doing, etc. And then you get surprised that it's still working, for instance.
Right.
And so I think that this openness maybe is a good close of the circle of our conversation. And maybe I would like just to add that I watched a video made by our wonderful crew here at the festival with only faces of young people singing. And I was really moved. And I realized how much they help us.
Very much.
So if we are just able to look at them and listen to them. And so I think that we are lucky to be here.
A big gift.
If you agree with me.
Absolutely, I do very much.
Jan, it was so nice to
Carlo,
have this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice continuation of festival, music, life.
Congratulations. Let's surprise each other soon.
Yes, thank you.
Coro Lab Podcast è una serie originale realizzata da Feniarco. Riprese e post-produzione a cura di Hobos Factory.